Hello, and welcome to T2RL Talks Conference Special Editions. In this series of short podcasts, we're going to be talking with some of the key sponsors of the T2RL Engage conference about the conversations that they are expecting to have during the conference and about some of the things that are exercising their minds as we move towards that time. We're actually recording this a little way in advance, so our apologies if the world has changed completely between now and when you hear this, but hopefully we are well enough informed that we can cover the essentials. In the studio with me, I have Jander, who is Senior Director of Product Management at Pros. And I also have Rasih Ustun, who is one of our senior consultants with a particular interest in revenue management and pricing. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the overall theme of T2RL Engage this year is the path to value or the routes to value. And I know, Justin, you've got some quite strong thoughts on the way that airlines should not be expecting to do everything before they start to see value from some of the technology changes and investments that they're making now. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think your intro there hits really right on my point of view. And the point really is you can certainly wait. You can wait until there's this perfect state. But I don't think any of us on the call know what perfect state actually is. And I don't know that anybody in the industry actually knows what that perfect state is. The idea that we want to get to something is continuing to evolve. And so waiting only sets you back from getting incremental value. And that's really, you talked about the pathway to value. That's really something we really focus on is how do we create paths to value? How do we create incremental steps that help you gain value and learn what you're going to need to do in the next step? And I think that's really important because there's a lot of things that has to change in order to get to this final state, and I use final in air quotes there because, again, we don't know what final really looks like there. But when we think about how we take those steps to this final state that we all want to get to, this nirvana place of revenue management, offer optimization, there's a lot that has to happen. And so if we focus instead on what is something I can do that helps me get towards that offer optimization concept incrementally and get value at the same time, because this is really, it's going to help you get value out of it, right? So if you can do something that brings you a 1% revenue uplift, why not do that right now and think about how that fits into your broader picture, get the benefit of that 1%, and it helps you set up to take the next step to get another 1% or another 2% or whatever that number will be. And on top of that, by doing it in this way, you really help focus on adoption as well. One of the things we've seen over the years is when you try to throw too much at an airline all at once, they revert back to their old ways really quickly. And so by doing the incremental approach, you're saying, adopt this one piece, take that into account, understand what that one piece is going to do for you, and then think about the next piece and the next piece. Otherwise, if you throw too much, they get overwhelmed. They don't understand which part is contributing to the uplift. And by doing all of that, you just take too long to adopt, and you don't get the benefit that you want out of the full picture. And so that's really why, for me, it's all about those incremental steps that you can take along the way.
Okay. And Rasih, I think some of the airlines that we've worked with over the last year or two are certainly following that kind of philosophy. So nobody is necessarily waiting for a full-blown offer, order, settle, deliver solution to be in place before they introduce dynamic pricing, for example.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely correct, Ian. The airlines we worked with definitely are in that approach, and then they have that thinking. And like Justin said, I mean, there's a lot of great ideas being developed in the market and being evolved. Dynamic pricing is one, and how you do that is also evolving as well as we speak. Behind the scenes, the models, the science, the ideas, the data that comes out. There's a lot of good thinking and good modeling and good designs that are happening as we speak across technology providers and airlines. And I mean, one of the greatest ways to prove it is to actually try them out in real life and see what happens. Because yes, we've gained some good traction with dynamic pricing. A lot of airlines have seen the benefits. It can always be improved, and it is being improved. And as you come up with good ideas that you can implement, you should take the approach of getting them in front of the customers as soon as you can and get the customer feedback as well, just like in any other business or in any other game. You don't learn until you actually play it. So that's definitely a lot of the airlines we speak with are having that kind of line of thought. And I know there are many other airlines who are sort of hesitating at this stage. Some of them are trying to be followers to see if the others are successful or not. But I'm pretty sure over the course of the next couple of years or so, getting things in front of their customers, the ideas that have been at least in a lab environment tested and proven, is something that does generate revenue value to the airline and it's their customers as well. And this is going to be acknowledged more and more as we speak, but that's the right approach.
And I think that kind of approach that talks about incremental improvements, Justin, probably means that you have a slightly different kind of relationship with your airline customers than you might have done a decade ago, in that you're not just selling them a package and implementing it and walking away. You're engaged in a much more consultative relationship with them over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really critical because, before it was something like you're on a path from leg revenue management to O&D revenue management, right? Like it was sort of pretty clear one step kind of thing. Well, now we've added a lot more steps into this concept of offer optimization. Rasih mentioned dynamic pricing. That's a clear step. Better elasticity forecasting has to be included, more dimensionality in your elasticity, more data in your elasticity estimation. Those are all critical. And that's all just on the right to fly side. Then we have sort of this wild west of the ancillary side, where the airlines have to do a lot more figuring out what they want their ancillary strategy to be. What's the future of brands? What's the future of bundles? Those types of things all have to be figured out. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more discussion that has to happen where we're doing a lot more recommendations, guidance. We've always been happy to do recommendations, but now it's more, okay, well, what do you want to achieve? How can we fit that into a pathway? And then again, providing that incremental value to take those steps, rather than us just sitting around thinking about what it could be at the end state, at the top of those steps. Let's talk about what we can do on each step along the journey.
And I think something that's kind of very much tied into this idea of incremental value is the idea of just do something. Okay. Don't get stuck in analysis paralysis trying to define a perfect solution. But as Rasih said, you do some experiments, you do some proofs of concept. You should always be looking at what you can actually be doing to achieve these incremental improvements.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's kind of a mission I'm on a bit on for myself these days, is that, we're talking a lot about what we could do. What does that end state look like? We hear that all the time. What does the end state look like? And I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't focus on the end state or shouldn't think about it, but we shouldn't let that cloud how we get to that end state and the things that you can do in between. And there's always going to be reasons that there are challenges that you're going to face to get to the next step on that incremental ladder. And if you get too wrapped up in how do we solve it, how do we get to perfection, you're never going to get to anything. You're not going to achieve that incremental value. So it's something we've been really emphasizing a lot is, work on the things. So one thing you might say is, you talked about the full offer, order, settle, deliver piece. You may think, well, why bother doing dynamic pricing until I've got orders in place? Well, sure, you can do that. You can wait. There's no reason you can't. There's plenty of reasons that you should do it now, though, right? There's the value you can gain, and this works in the PSS world. It works in the filed fare world. These things work in today's architecture, even if it's not perfect, right? An economist would never give us any high fives about how well this is structured in terms of how we're putting prices into the market and so forth. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it or do something to get those prices out there and achieve that incremental revenue.
Yeah, and I don't think it's even just the headline incremental revenue that you achieve. It's also to do with getting your organization geared
Yeah.
to be looking for incremental value. And it seems to me that it's something that if you practice, you get better at it.
Absolutely.
Rasih,
Do
you think
Rasih would have some good opinions on that here with what he's seeing in the market.
Yeah, I mean, airlines that we're working with, I guess we work with airlines all over the world from all different cultures and in all different business models. But it is definitely true that some of them are really equipped with this incremental mindset, and others maybe not so much. And we could speculate as to why that is and what kind of management they have. But it is something that we observe in the market, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, other than the incremental benefits, which obviously the end result you want to achieve with, it's the innovation culture that has to be basically spread out across the airline, right? Innovating ways of pricing your products is a great thing. Innovating ways to actually design products and put products in front of customers is another topic as well. Some of the airlines are looking at it. And being in the forefront for that and being pioneers is something that some airlines have historically taken, and some are coming up and taking this as a challenge for themselves, as an initiative across the board. Because if you go into retailing, innovation is a key thing. I mean, we know that the innovators are the ones that are usually successful in retailing business. So although, yeah, there are quite a lot of airlines that haven't been using or working with this culture, innovation is something that is becoming more popular as well as we speak. And as they look at the opportunities that are out there and what can be coming after that, after taking the first steps, is something quite interesting. But is it true? Yes, not all airlines are going to do that. But are the number of innovators increasing? I think yes. I think there are more and more airlines thinking about being pioneers in terms of the services they bring in front of customers and how they price them. Yeah.
And I would certainly hope that the airlines who will be with us in London in September for T2RL Engage will be amongst those with a more innovation mindset. They're actively looking for what they can be doing next. I want to move on just a little bit to something that's perhaps a little more sort of practical, and that is integration. I know that one of the big expectations or aspirations for the world of offer, order, settle, deliver is that systems are going to become much more modular. Systems are not going to be these monolithic mainframe environments that we've known and loved for the last 50 years. But Justin, what is Pros' thinking about the move towards modularity? Is it real? Is it practical? And what are you doing to make it happen?
Well, we're obviously a huge fan, and the reason for that, and we're a big believer in the concepts of modularity. The reason for that is Pros doesn't have the intention to be everything in offer, order, settle, deliver. We want to focus on where our bread and butter, what we know and what we're good at, is really around the optimization side. And so, and it's also on the offer construction side. So everything having to do with offer is where we want to spend our time and our resources. What that means is of course, we're going to have to integrate with the other systems that are at play. And not only that, we expect that some airlines may want to bring parts of our system, parts of our offer with other parts of offer that they want to bring or build themselves. And we've always felt that that's an important piece of the picture. And so what we're looking at from this angle is really working with the industry along those lines, being part of POCs to show how that modularity can work and how we can work with those. We're defining standards as best as possible, but focusing on everything being more API driven and focusing on that side. And then I'll just note too, historically, Pros has been an RM system that needed data from other vendors. We've always needed data from other vendors. And we've worked together with those other vendors to figure out how do we get that data in, what's their format, what's our format. It's, and that description of formats is of course like a legacy kind of idea, but the concept was always there of how do we work together to bring, with the airline as the central piece, They want one product from Pros and they want a different product from another vendor. That was okay. We didn't say it couldn't work. We didn't mandate anything. We worked together to make that work. We're going to take that concept and just really focus on how we broaden that to the offer order space in a much more defined way, with more standards, more API access, and really giving the ownership of data to the airline, and so that they don't have to feel as though they're having to be nickeled and dimed for every aspect of every movement of data from one system to another. We want to make sure that that's taken out of the equation and really focus on achieving the end result with the individual parts of the entire solution that the airline feels is best for their ecosystem.
Yeah, there was a kind of meme a few years ago, wasn't there, that says data wants to be free. I'm not sure that all the vendors in the space are active supporters of that just yet. Standards for modularity and interoperation, I think it's fair to say that the industry is not moving as quickly towards global standards for those things as we might like. So I'm assuming that Pros will work bilaterally with other vendors in the airline's ecosystem to develop those capabilities of interaction.
Exactly, 100%. And I think the role that IATA is playing with the working groups is fantastic. There's great that we have a governing kind of body over top of that. But those are airlines that are still trying to be airlines as their day job, right? So this is where they can do these things, and so they're working as fast as they can there. But vendors are going to have to also do this on their own, and so certainly when vendors work with each other, we can help establish those standards, working together with the different pieces that make sense for each vendor.
Yeah, and just like the innovation thing, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more straightforward Absolutely. It becomes. Okay, the last topic, and we've touched on the subject of an end state, and just to editorialize a bit, I don't believe in end states. I don't think there's ever an end state, because by the time you achieve what you set out to achieve, the world has moved on and there's something new to achieve. So, but let's just talk about a state where some of today's developments have borne fruit and airlines are able to use some of the things that are in development now. When we talked the other day, Justin, we talked about a world where AI is rearing its head everywhere and driving some of the decisions and driving some of the capabilities in our systems. What other thoughts do you have about a future state if we avoid the term end state?
Yeah, well, my joke is that the end state is really my retirement date. That's probably the most important end date for me personally. Of course, you're exactly right, Ian. There isn't a concept of an end state. We're always going to be evolving, and if what we've seen from AI is any indication, we're going to evolve really fast. The end state is going to constantly be changing. What I think matters most is that the airline takes those steps to define what offer optimization means to them in terms of being able to create an offer for a passenger that maximizes revenue for the airline and provides a set of products that the passenger wants that helps improve conversion for the airline. That's the kind of baseline of what we want to get to as the end state. Now, how you do it once you get to that point is always going to be changing. The AI models in the background are going to constantly be evolving to do those objectives better. And that's what we should be focused on, is how do we get to the point where we know the problem we want to solve is really well defined. And then once that's clear, then we get to focus on the exciting part, which is the science that we apply to that state. So it's not about having an end state that's perfect and we get to wash our hands and we're all done and nobody has to work on it anymore. It's having a clear setup of how we solve the problem, and then the flexibility to change the models that we put in and the objective functions that we're using within that framework that's been created there. So I think that's the Pros view, is really thinking about it from how do we get there to this point of it's well-defined in its organization, but then it allows AI to come and quickly change the way we do it, so that then the next 2% of revenue uplift you get is not from doing it at all. It's from changing the model that you use to do it when you put it in place.
Okay. And Rasih, when we are working with airlines on procurement processes, I think that the smart airlines, if you like, are not only asking for what they want to see delivered next year or as part of this exercise, but they also want to know that the pathway through to some of the things that Justin is talking about exist within the vendor's offerings. Is that something that we are seeing more of nowadays? More sort of, I almost use the term future proofing then, which is a term from the 1980s, but there you go.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's something the airlines would like to see. And whatever Justin mentioned is something that airlines are quite interested as well, how we are going to achieve and how we are going to evolve or what we can do to evolve this. And they want to get a view of where do we go from today? If we deploy this and then tomorrow, what do you think will happen? And what's that transition path? And how can I transition while at the same time I'm running the business, right? That I'm not hurting my revenue or I'm not disrupting my processes. One more thing I would add here is a lot of the airlines we discuss with, when you specifically on the AI topic and how things evolve going forward, right? They are interested more and more in things that can create unique differentiators for them, right? How can I use the models that I'm, for example, purchasing from a technology provider? I'm partnering with a technology provider. Yes, these are new things that we are deploying and innovation is happening, etc. But over time, how can I set up a process for myself that I can actually tweak, customize, recalibrate, etc., whether it's an AI model or some other model that I can use and actually achieve some unique differentiation versus my competition, right? That aspect is something they're also very interested in. How can, for example, a technology provider work with them, or how can they work and provide their requirements to the technology provider to implement? But at the end of the day, they want to use AI not as a commodity, but as part of how they can use it to customize per their needs and get ahead of the market with something new that the others are not doing.
Okay, and Justin is nodding there, appears to be in full agreement. I think this is a fascinating conversation, and I think we've also just scratched the surface of it in this 20-minute recording. So I hope that many of the people listening to this now will be able to join us in London in September. I know Justin, Rasih, and I will all be there, and this conversation will no doubt continue. In the meantime, if you're an airline and you haven't yet registered for T2RL Engage, please do so. Registrations are open now. And just as the reminder I always give, there is no charge for airlines to attend the conference. This is a policy that T2RL has had forever and one we intend to continue. So we want to make it as easy as possible for airlines to come along and continue this conversation with the likes of Justin and Rasih and myself and all of the other vendors and sponsors who will be there. So with that, I'd like to thank Rasih, I'd like to thank Justin for this conversation, and I'd like to thank, as always, you for listening. And I look forward to talking to you again in the next edition of T2RL Talks.